Well, hello and welcome to the unofficial Unreal Engine podcast, where we talk about all things Unreal Engine and also making friends while at the market. I'm your host, Alex Coulomb, and with me today is a very special guest I've been excited to chat in depth with for a while. Welcome to Matt Workman. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me. You are a very busy person, I must say.
We can compete. We can start like sharing all the different hats we're juggling, wearing hats, juggling hats, and see who's actually busier. It's probably pretty close between the two of us.
I think you win. I'm pretty sure.
So, guests of the show might remember we got to have a little sneak preview of hanging out with Matt during the season 2 finale, and now we have a full episode just to dive into his remarkable career and the things he's interested in and all the fun Unreal Engine stuff. But before we get into all that and find out, what was Matt like as a kid? What's he want to be like as an old man? All those fun questions. Be sure to like, rate, subscribe, all those things Jacob usually says. And we are going to start with our word association. Matt, are you ready for some word association?
No, but let's go. But let's go
A
for it.
totally reasonable answer. I'm also going to change one of our questions because when we had Corey on, I got the wrong answer for it so many times. It's like, okay, this question has to be changed. So you'll be the first person to receive a new version of one of these questions. But
Ah,
here we go.
okay, okay.
Word associations. You can say the first word that comes to your mind, first phrase, no pressure.
Mhm.
Home.
I'm thinking of the town I live in, but I don't want to say. We could say Massachusetts.
There
I
you
live in
go. Sure.
Massachusetts or
Yeah.
Boston.
Work.
Unreal Engine.
Food.
Ooh, Korean.
Nice. Travel.
Seattle.
Fortnite.
Oh, UEFN.
Virtual production.
Unreal Engine.
And lastly, Unreal Engine.
Hmm. Could you say Unreal Engine as well? Just an Unreal Engine-y kind of day. I'm wearing the Unreal Engine hat. That's when it comes
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The swag is so good. Some slightly longer form questions. How do you take your morning drink? Tea, coffee, smoothie, whatever it might be.
I was coffee for a while. I thought I needed it, but like it turns out like I didn't. I was like it was like my regular diet was kind of just screwed up. So once I got my like kind of regular diet, I just have water
Oh yeah.
in the morning, just straight hydration. Been didn't have any coffee all of Unreal Fest, and I haven't been having any caffeine lately, really.
Yeah, it feels like people are getting off of this. And this is the question I had to change because we always had it as how do you take your coffee? And
Hmm.
so many guests were like, I don't drink coffee or I don't drink coffee anymore. So it's like we gotta generalize it a little bit. But to really answer the question, how do you take your water, Matt? Is it room temperature? Is it cold? Is it sparkling?
It's coming out of the fridge. It's cold. I've heard like room temperature is better, but
Yeah,
I like it a little cold. Sometimes if I have it, like lemon juice or something like that, but just straight water.
that's really funny. Great. All right. What is a book slash movie slash video game slash immersive art piece, whatever, that kind of rocked your world at some point in your life that you would recommend others check out?
Oh, at some point in my life, I was like, recent. I don't know. I have it as like an email to myself to try to actually beat Baldur's Gate 3. It's like
Oh
this like
yeah.
seminal, like you have to play, just like, just massive. I ended up talking to like the cinematic director of that online and some other people from
Whoa.
Larian. I was like, but I only made it to like Act 1 and I was like kind of overwhelmed. It's like especially it's like I didn't play a lot of D&D growing up. It's just like kind of a thick game, but I was like, we need to finish this for the culture. So it's a reminder for myself. It's an email to myself to be finish Baldur's Gate 3.
That's amazing.
Uh,
All right. And then what is your favorite time of day, Matt?
I think lunch right now is pretty good. It's still
Lunch.
bright. I'm in the East Coast and it's like winter. And so it's dark in the morning, it's dark at night, but like right around noon, still, my studio's nice and bright, go down for lunch. Right now that's pretty good. Or picking up the kids from school, but still it's like it's kind of dark sometimes by then.
Yeah, that's funny. I think you're the first lunch answer we've gotten. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
totally solid answer. Lunch is great. And then lastly here, when was the last time you remember laughing? Like, could have been a dumb joke, could have been someone falling down some stairs, Schadenfreude, whatever. What comes to mind when you think of a time you laughed recently?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like we just laughed like just a second ago. I laugh a
Sure.
lot. I don't really make note of it, so it's hard to think of anything. I think try to try to find something funny in almost like anything that I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, you're a pretty jovial guy. Lot of laughter over at Unreal Fest. And speaking of Unreal Fest, Matt, it's a couple weeks out now from being over there in Seattle. Tell me a little bit about your journey to Seattle, what Unreal Fest was like, what were some of the highlights for you, and also how'd your talk go?
Oh yeah. So like practically I'm making right now like an iOS game. So I went there and I was just like, let's do all the Apple talks, all the iOS talks, of which there were a lot. And Tim Sweeney, his first talk after his keynote was on, the mobile app stores and whatnot, like
Mm.
independent ones. So that was like those are the ones that like had like actual, the talks with value for me, like that I could come home and immediately start to like, base how I would do the next year based on some of that stuff. And then most of it was just like if I knew the speaker, usually some like virtual production person, just go show up, hang out, and then just like every breakfast. I think you said this on like the podcast before. It's like breakfast, lunch, dinner every single time. It's just like you just pick a table, people, you just go hang out. Other people come in and just just there to talk with people. I ended and I mean I guess this is probably not surprising, but I got into some like really pretty deep dives with people from Epic and people I've known
Mm.
online. It was like you end up missing a talk because I just sat next to like like Greg Richardson from Epic for like an hour. He's just like busting it out. He's like saying, you know, telling like a big long story with some other people from Amazon. I was like, this is like, where's where else could this happen? It really wouldn't. And it's cool to hang out with people from Epic and just the community because like so many people are remote. I think
Yeah.
everyone's literally remote. So it's like it's really like the only time even Epic employees and like all these other virtual production people, if they're not on set with each other, it's the only time we like see each other. And so there's just like some I don't know. They feel pretty organic, like conversations happen, and you definitely like deepen like the relationships you've had with someone like Twitter or LinkedIn for like a couple of years.
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that so many Epic employees get to attend, which isn't that common actually across a lot of other conferences coming right from Meta Connect. Like very few Meta employees, even the ones working pretty hard on, new headsets and things like that, don't actually get to go to Meta Connect. So most of the people you're interfacing with are just, other developers, which is great. But that merging of Unreal Fest between Epic Games employees and everyone working with Unreal Engine and Fortnite and UEFN, I think is a really special thing about it for sure.
Yeah, they have like I don't forget what they call it. I was thinking like the office hours. They're just like they have to do their all the Epic employees have to do their time at the booths, and it's like just people just
Yeah.
like run at them and like ask them questions. But like that's perfect. Yeah, and they're at all the parties and like they're usually the first people I say hi to at those things, and then but they are there, and it is definitely like it feels unique to be able to actually like talk to someone who's like, yeah, I'm the PM of like sequencer.
Right. Yeah.
It's like
Tiny little thing that millions of people now are using.
yeah, like I won't name like other companies who I use their software. It's like I don't know who makes certain segments of that software. But, like I know the PMs of like most of the different aspects of Unreal Engine that I use, and so that's feels unique. And the departments are like not understaffed or anything like that, but they're pretty small. They're pretty tight knit like units.
Yeah.
It's not as big as you would think as when you interface with like an Adobe or like some of these like other companies. It's like could they do they even know like the list of the people who are like working on like some huge chunk of After Effects? It's like so with Epic it's a lot easier to like actually find who works on the the part of the engine that you're interested in.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like no matter who you talk to from Epic, you're gonna find some really fascinating part of what they're up to at Epic Games that they work on. Like even someone who's like a lowly like QA tester or something like that. If you start actually talking to them about what they're actually doing QA testing on, especially some of the newer features that are experimental, I mean, all those jobs sound pretty awesome, and I have so much respect for everyone who's helping to build this beast of an engine.
And they work hard. These people are I don't want to say tired, but they are working. It
Yeah.
is Epic requires a lot of their employees. They definitely you need to have a lot of energy and you need to be pumping.
Yeah, and I haven't been shy about saying over the last year that ever since the layoffs that happened right before the previous Unreal Fest, like there wasn't a lot of hiring that happened again, and yet I know a lot of the Epic employees just had more and more things poured on their plate. So it seemed like some of the people there who were already quite busy, they now were doing the job of like three people. So a few of them burned out over the last year and unfortunately have left, but the ones who are still keeping on, I think the more we kind of cheer them and say like, "You're doing so amazing. Thank you for your work." They do appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like know all the people, or not all, but I know a lot of the people that like got burned out and did move on, and but then some came back actually There's
Oh yeah.
I forget who just came back. It was one of the like the motion capture people. Like went off, did like animation for like a startup or something like that, and like a game company, and then he's right back in.
Boomerang. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's like, "Welcome back" on LinkedIn. It's like you did your indie break. I think he was there for like 15 years, or something crazy. You know,
Oh
did all the
wow.
Unreal Tournament stuff, and then you know came back. But yeah, I feel like again, like a lot of the employees that I've like spoken to like in depth with, and had a relationship for a while. It's like there's like something extra that like keeps them going. Like they really have this like you really need like this internal drive that like they're just like all the challenges that come in, they're like I'm on it. This was it's like something you don't want to make it like too personal because it's like it's just your job. But like I mean I never think about my job that way. But like I'm like that like is what I do. Like, kind of what sort of maybe too close to my identity. But like all the ones that I've talked to who's like really stuck it out and last, they have like this like really strong drive, and it was cool to like hear a little bit about that in person.
Yeah, for sure. So I unfortunately did not go to any talks at all. So as much as I wanted to see yours, you are part of the
Yeah.
long list of people where I was like, I hope I make it to this, and then I just have to be a bad person to everyone. But tell me a little bit about what it was like prepping your talk, and then what it felt like to actually be on stage giving it.
Oh, it was pretty chill. It's like any like, tech or not tech, like an art tech conference. So it's like straight PowerPoint. Mine wasn't a workshop. Workshops are stressful. I've heard some I heard some like ups and downs of the people running the workshops, technically how challenging that can be. But just a straight kind of like slideshow with lots and lots of videos. So, try to make it like somewhat interesting to watch. And I just
Yeah.
give 10 tips that I've kind of just learned about building apps in Unreal Engine. And then leaned a little bit heavy into the Mac side of it because like I'm just like all Mac and
Yeah.
iOS right now. Like my like main computer when I'm in Unreal Engine since I've been back is an M2 Mini. I
Oh
like
man.
I like barely go on my PC right now. I'm just like cranking on the Mac the whole time.
Matt, we are going to talk about Mac development and Unreal Engine during this podcast. I have been pleasantly surprised since becoming a Mac user for, I want to say, really the first time since 1995, where we had
Damn.
like a proper Macintosh. Getting a MacBook proper, thanks to Eugene Chung for helping me with that process about a year ago, and now same as you, I feel like I'm actually using that MacBook as like my primary dev machine for Unreal Engine, and I never would have guessed in a million years that that would happen. I'm speaking to you right now on a Puget workstation with an RTX 4090, and like this thing can handle Unreal, and yet I don't need it as much as I actually think I do.
Yeah, yeah. Like I had like a great sponsorship during COVID with HP, and I have two HP Z8s
Yeah.
with an A6000 and a Quadro 8000, which was like pretty good back then. And it's like, but so much to build for Mac OS, to build for iOS, to build for Apple Vision Pro, it's like you need to be on the Mac computer. And like I'm just like, these are the features I'm gonna go with, which is not nanite, lumen, megalights, and such. I don't use, you can't, not yet. I feel
Not
like it's
yet.
coming. But even if it is like, um, I did like I did probably like 7 years of like development with like straight RTX.
Hmm.
It's like RTX GI. And then when Lumen came out, I was like, well, let's go crazy on Lumen, right? Like, so I'm gonna
Oh
build like
yeah.
an app that uses it. But all that's like very heavy. And like the most common, a very common thing would be users would be like, hey, this is great. It's like 20 frames per second on my computer,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah,
Is it worth it?
I could optimize more for sure, but it's like, it just turns out that you really need like the user of the things I build needs a very strong PC or a very strong Mac, MacBook Pro, MacBook, Max, is that what they call the Max? And I was like,
Oh yeah,
those
Max.
those do okay. But I've with my last projects and kind of the next ones I'm building out, I was like, I'm trying to go back. I'm trying to have this like supported way back. So I try to build it like mobile first, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like keep it super performant as much as I can. And then so that's been like kind of like a new approach to it, which for game devs, I'm sure they're like, yeah, of course, right? You should do that. But I've been so dedicated to like RTX GI and Lumen, Lumen all the things, It's like
Yeah.
being on the Mac now because I've stripped away most of that stuff. It's actually works great. The metahumans are working.
Hmm.
5.4 animation's great. Um, yeah, I'm just chilling on the
Yeah.
Mac again.
And I do have to thank you again for that hashtag UE tip about metahuman hair and getting that to work well on the Mac. That was driving me crazy. And you
Yeah.
were, I forget exactly what it was in the groom settings. Do you remember the checkbox offhand that fixed
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it's RBF interpolation.
There we go. Yeah.
That's like, yeah, I had a build of one of my games in UE5. I was like, hey, let's upgrade to 5.4, like all the, all this cool stuff. And it's like the hair is like, bow, just like died. I was like, so for like 2 months, we had a release of Cinetracer 2 that had had no hair.
Oh no.
I just turned off all the grooms for the Mac version. But anyway, we solved that. And it's I guess iPhones are fast now. Like iPhones, iPad Pros, they're like crazy fast. But like I have like multiple metahumans like animated and like having mocap with
Yeah.
cameras in it. I don't do lights. You can't do lots of lights. That's just not possible really to keep the frame rate. But like I have like multiple metahumans like animated and whatnot for iOS, and it's
Yeah.
been going great. I've been pretty happy with it.
Man, this is fun because I already thought that we had a number of things in common, but this focus right now on like mobile and performance and kind of letting some of the power user features go by the wayside. That's also been a very big feature of 2024 for me. Most of our client work is like meant to be super photorealistic and using all the latest greatest features. But then we did have a VR release in the Quest store this year that needed to use metahumans and like needed to be so performant. And based on that, we're like, you know what? There is something kind of nice about the wider audience you can reach by making everything more performant and letting Lumen and Nanite and yeah, Mega Lights and all these exciting features fall by the wayside, or at least making them very optional for like a separate desktop version.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say like everything we're up to right now as well is very much like how do we optimize the hell out of this and make it run well on mobile, make it work on Apple Vision Pro, make it work with a phone, and it's a fun challenge and I think very satisfying just because there's a much wider audience out there.
Yeah, and it's simpler. Like the levels I put together, because like when it's PC, I'm like, well, my PC, we could cook up like a big scene, lots of systems running. But for the iOS stuff, like even for like an iPad Pro, which is like pretty powerful, it's like I just like the screen's smaller generally. You could, I guess, like whatever, like remote it to your TV or something. But most people are going to be holding like on set, honestly, the small iPad Pro, not even the big one. And
Yeah.
it's like we just have to design smaller and make it simpler. And there's something like really nice about that. Like I've been, I feel like my biggest monstrosity Cinetracer is just like it's just so many systems put together,
Yeah.
some RTX and some Lumen and like all this stuff because it's PC and people run it on like 39-inch ultra wides with
Mhm.
4090s, and it's like that's kind of what we were going for here. It's like let's turn all the things. It's been nice to just build like really simple levels, for mobile that are small. That I will tell you, I will say, designing the UI
Mhm.
for something that's going to be on your phone, which is like pretty
Teeny
pretty.
tiny.
It's small, but it's also really wide. So it's like
Right.
wider
Yeah.
than 16 by 9.
Yeah.
And then an iPad Pro, which is almost 4 by 3, is not easy. And then I
Mhm.
went I went to a talk on optimizing the Unreal Engine UI for mobile and
Um,
learned a lot of things that I do very wrong when draw calls matter. Like every size box is a draw call or something like this. I took notes. There's like all these things like where like on mobile, like the draw call count of your UI starts to like actually add up like really quickly. PC, it's like doesn't that not usually a problem, but for these things, it's like you have to really design like super optimized and responsive for just horrible aspect ratio changes.
yeah, I've heard a lot of that as well. Well, Matt, I think a lot of our guests probably already know who you are. You're pretty well known within the Unreal Engine scene, but let's back up a little bit. Let's rewind. Maybe actually, let's start with like, if someone is meeting you at, say, Unreal Fest for the first time and they don't know who you are, what's kind of your typical way to, give a little elevator pitch of who you are and what you do and what you're interested in?
Yeah. So I say that I make apps for the film industry and
Hmm.
I build them in Unreal Engine 5. And then my background is in live action cinematography. So I worked in New York City and LA a little bit, filming commercials, so camera and lighting for commercials, a little bit of TV, a little bit of music videos. And now I make apps like for old me, like for when I was a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like what would I have needed, and specifically as a cinematographer. So I'm building kind of like storyboard apps to have like lighting diagrams built into them, very Unreal Engine sequencer looking stuff. And then my latest one is an app for camera operators, which is like really niche, but they need it. They love it. I
Yeah.
like building it. And it's for operators to practice with wheels and some different kind of like very niche film industry equipment. But like it's like a training simulator you'd have for like a car mechanic or NASA. I met someone from NASA at Unreal Fest,
Yeah.
building VR simulators, for like lunar landings or something. I don't know, something NASA, something beyond my pay grade. But I basically build that kind of stuff for the film industry.
Yeah. How did you make that transition from just being someone in the film space to actually feeling like you had the desire or capability to actually start to build tools that would help people like you?
Yeah, so like originally, like in high school, I wanted to work in the games industry at Blizzard
No,
specifically
it's very
to do,
specific.
yeah, to do cinematics because I
Yeah.
was, I was I was like, oh, StarCraft, like that's great. World of
Yeah.
Warcraft, cinematics, like I still know like every frame of them. I'm like, that's really cool. Let's do that. But like back then, there wasn't so much of the internet. information on like how one would do that. I was just like, didn't even ask anybody. I was just like, I have no idea how that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um, so I always had this like want to do that in the background. But so I went to school for computer science.
Mhm.
Eh, didn't quite turn into games, but it was like enough. But luckily, my school had an internship program with New York City. So I went to New
Ah.
York City and I interned at like a VFX company, which then got me on set a little bit. And from there, I was like, never mind, no computers. Computers were really slow back then. I was like, let me just get a camera and we're
Mm.
gonna film stuff. Like that's faster. It's cooler.
Yeah.
Um, and got into that and did 10 years of just straight commercials. I feel like on the film industry side of stuff, this is a long time ago, but was known for like my DSLR stuff. Like we were really early with the DSLR shooting videos for like Diddy, which is a topical topic at the moment. Like 50 Cent, we just like a ton of music videos and all that in New York. We were like the first wave kings of that and the Reds and all that. Um, but I started to get into like VFX commercials because I was like, hey, I still like 3D. I like an awful lot. And I just started using 3D to plan and to visualize. So it's called previs. Just got really, really into that and like, would get like really big commercials based on that. And then eventually I was like, hey, what if I like turn these like 3D things I make like into a product? Just for like side money. Like not like I'm not gonna like do this full time was the thought. And then when I started doing that, after a couple of years, Epic Games actually reached out to me. Andy Blondin from Epic reached out and was like, "Hey, we'd love for you to do that in Unreal Engine."
Uh,
And I kind of just took like I was making 3D cranes and 3D dollies and stuff like that, still do. And I just like wrapped it into like a game framework, which I had no idea how to do it at that time. Called it Cine Game, and then the day before I released it, called it Cine Tracer. And it sold like really, really, really well. And Epic was also like insanely supportive. I would have to I could list like the number of things they've done to help that project and me during that phase. And at that point, uh, had two kids, I believe. I had moved
Mhm.
into this house.
Mhm.
I built it like over there with a bunch of desks over there. Didn't have the Vicon system and all that stuff back then. And at that point, it became a choice. I was like, I'm making enough now that I could do that full time. And I just kind of stopped DPing at that point.
Yeah, and do you miss being more of a full-time DPA, or do you find that the niche you're in right now is satisfying enough? Because you're probably spending a lot more time alone versus, being on set and being surrounded by people. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So like right before COVID,
Mhm.
2019, I had like quote unquote director DP'd the like first like LED wall demo with the motorcycle for Epic.
That's right.
And I was getting like I'm sure anyone involved with that project, we were just like getting calls from like everyone, like Amazon, like Netflix, like all those people that were then we're gonna go build that studio like right now. So like there was the thought to like get back into production at that point. But then COVID hit,
Yeah.
and so the idea of like flying around the world and whatnot during the peak first hit COVID, I was like, nope. And so that pretty much brought me back into programming. But then luckily this must have been during the boom of Epic as well. I think COVID was a boom for a lot of software companies,
Oh,
Epic
yeah.
included. Yeah, right. So I was like, I told Epic, I was like, we just did this thing. I'd love to keep making content about this.
Mhm.
I was like, I need to do something. That's what this basement was born out of. So I was like, I was like, I'm gonna just make YouTube videos about virtual production, and they basically like, I don't know the word like whitelisted. They gave me the fastest mega grant that's ever been approved, I
So
believe.
cool.
I went straight to the person who approved it. They were just like, how much do you need? And it turned into like, a virtual production series here. Like
So cool.
more stuff in this room than anyone should have. It was kind of like a wild time, but a wild time in my basement. But so that was me trying to like stay with production, during COVID and whatnot. Did some like remote consulting, but ultimately I was like, I'm still doing software. Like that's the thing. But almost got pulled back in, and then I did some videos in the
Yeah.
studio.
Oh, man. By the way, a little bit out of left field, but do you have a Vision Pro?
No, no. I want just during during my era. I think I have everything,
Yeah.
and I have like three of them. I have, but recently I've been kind of like if like you have, trust me, like when it first came out, I was following all that stuff. I was like, it'll be the deepest rabbit hole. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I was like, and like to me, I was like, I'm not sure I'm gonna make money from that just yet, like make a product from it. But yeah, I really, really want one and want to build for it. But I'm building an iPad OS is like
Ex-
that one I can sell, that one can make money, that can sustain itself and then AVP. So I want to go live in that thing though. Very much.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons why I've thought about you when it comes to the Vision Pro. And of course, you are building for iOS, and people can port their apps over to Vision Pro. But also from the filming perspective, there's new Canon lenses for filming in spatial video in really cool ways. I've also seen DPs. I think even bringing over iOS apps like Canon Connect or something like that over into Vision Pro, so you basically get like a giant live
Mhm.
view of what you're filming in the moment. Like there's like all these cool little hacks just on the filmmaking side of things. But the other day, there was a Vision Pro film release called Submerged, and it made me
Mm.
realize that like there's this problem where so many of the people creating content for Apple right now, they just don't know what works and what doesn't work with 180 video and 360 video, and they're taking a lot of traditional filmmakers and putting them into this medium, and they're still kind of relying on their old tricks, which don't translate very well. And so I thought about you in this context because it feels like they need more tools and training systems that help them kind of figure out ahead of actually arriving on set with these new cameras they've never touched before, how all this stuff works. So could you imagine, a future with Vision Pro and starting to either be more involved with actual productions or even just on the training side of like helping people realize the full potential of what Apple is trying to do with its new immersive content?
Yeah, I mean, like at this point, I would want to build apps for
Hmm.
it. And I've technically one of my apps, Image Tracer, is VR, and there's a lot of VR users. I've built a horrible VR system for it, but it's like you could teleport around, you can move stuff in VR, and like you need like a killer PC to be running. It has RTX GI turned on if you want to,
Yeah.
like ridiculous. Um,
Wait, real quick, you're packaging from the NVIDIA fork of Unreal Engine?
no, it's the stock RTX GI. I have a 4.27 game,
Okay, gotcha.
and I have a UE 5.4 version of it now that people use. What's it called? UE VR Injector. People have
Right, yeah.
have custom ported that one, which is running Lumen Stereo, I believe. I've never even tried it.
Yeah.
Um, but my point being is that like PC VR for the film industry there's the intersection with the film industry and PC VR is like doesn't exist.
Right.
You would think from like some of like the VR scouting and stuff you'd see from like Unreal Engine promos that exist. It's not really too much of a market. I know them because they use the tracer and they have VR. But with Apple's very different. Like every DP that I know has an iPhone and has an iPad Pro in their pocket. Like that is what they bring on set. So if there was ever for the DPs a platform that would get them into XR, AR, whatever we want to call it, it would be the Apple Vision Pro, and probably the more affordable one that will come out in the future, the Air. So like I hope to be. It was one of the pushes why I've been moving into iOS so strong. Is like it's like once that like is really there, I'd like to be able to like on day one like release that. And I can't. No one can, but I have worked with Apple before in the past, so perhaps there is something even more like tangible as that kind of comes out um, in the future.
Yeah. As someone who knows much, much more about filmmaking than I ever will, how do you feel when you hear about these reports like, oh, 28 years later is coming out and Danny Boyle is like using an iPhone instead of a red camera or whatever? Like, does that seem like a gimmick to you, or is that a testament to like, oh no, phones are actually getting to a point where with the right lenses and all this other equipment, they actually are these really amazing tools for filmmaking in general?
Well, for like traditional like cinema, I think it's a bit of a promo.
Hmm.
Even though he filmed that other movie on like the XL1 or something like that, right?
Right.
But if you look at like the greater content like TikTok and YouTube and whatnot, it's like the phones are better than a lot of those cameras. They're better autofocus. They're just easier to film with, and like the language of the selfie vertical video. I was saying on your LinkedIn videos like you need to film vertical.
Yeah.
That that is a real language
Mhm.
and is like, kind of the French New Wave of 2024 and whatnot. It's like I remember when first vertical video first came out, and I was like YouTubing with like Casey Neistat and those dudes. And it was like the first video, like we take SLRs and flip them vertical, and it was like a full nightmare. But like, and I was like, oh, this is like, is this gonna stay? And like, it certainly has. So like the Verite handheld of 2024, is in 16 millimeter. It's the phone. So like that is like the real film language, I think, that like of like the masses. And I remember I filmed a Crest commercial that was supposed to be like a selfie like this,
Mhm.
and we filmed it with like an Alexa. You know what I mean? With like a crazy ass rig and like it's because it's a film production. But I think these days we would just be fine filming it, on the phone. I think image quality, they definitely have it. The sensors, it's smarter than any camera that's out there. There's like way more going on in there with the depth sensors and whatnot. It's just like it's not designed to be running for like an hour. It's gonna overheat. Heat's like its main issue, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you think about where this is all headed in the future, TikTok, social media, filmmaking, do you see kind of a trajectory for what's going to happen? We haven't even talked about AI yet, but how do you feel about the future in general for the filmmaking industry?
I look at things like digital. Is it Digital Circus? You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
Digital
about?
Circus, my kids love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, and there's a Garden of Bam Bam, and I'm looking at this like pretty indie setups making Unreal Engine games, like super indie, like short experiences, and then they brought them to UEFN, and it was like exploded. This Garden of Bam Bam, my son plays that,
Mhm.
and then yeah, like just the cinema that they're creating, either in Blender or in Unreal Engine. And these are pretty small teams, and the numbers are there. So like, I think we've all heard the pitch of like, the next James Cameron is going to be like, born to be in their garage doing it. And I was like, I think this is like really, and to plug Unreal Engine, they're doing both. They're both sides of it, cinema and games. But it's like, I think that's starting to happen, and I think that there's sort of like a implosion collapse of old media. And this has happened before. It's gonna happens again. It's kind of just like, oh, we're gonna milk this until it doesn't work anymore. It explodes, and then something new is born. I was like, I feel like we're certainly in that. I feel on the older side of like, my old way is about to explode, and there's a new way coming. But luckily with Unreal Engine, I can kind of maybe jump on onto something new. But yeah, I think I specifically think of Digital Circus and its success and how indie it is, and then
Mhm.
Garden of Bam Bam on the Unreal Engine side, game side of it. I was like, my kids don't play too many mainstream games. Like I'm the boomer millennial playing World of Warcraft still. Like it's they don't touch that stuff. It's all this
Yeah.
like way new wave stuff.
Do you still go back to some older games like World of Warcraft?
I play World of Warcraft way too much. It's a brand new season right now. The world, oh man, the
Ah.
War Within. I installed it on my computer. Haven't paid the sub yet. Shouldn't. It's gonna do terrible things to my life. My family's gonna be like,
Oh,
"Oh no, he's back on the WoW."
man.
But yeah, I'm an old school WoW player, and it's the only game. Y- People were mad about microtransactions and stuff like that. I was like, when I'm playing WoW, I'm paying a monthly subscription. I pay for the expansion, and then you're paying in-game WoW token. I was like, we spend way too much money on that game. But yeah, but
Wow.
yes, WoW. Yeah. Hey
Wow.
man, like I said, it's a game I got into like the entertainment just because I like the World of Warcraft cinematic, and it's still compelling to me.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about scheduling. So again, we're both very busy guys. There's any million number of projects we could be working on at any time. We've got a wife, kids, we've got all sorts of stuff going on. First of all, how do you carve out time to be like, you know what? I'm going to spend 2 hours playing World of Warcraft, or I'm going to play World of Warcraft until I'm done. And maybe it'll be 30 minutes, maybe it'll be 7 hours.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. So what was it? I reached an extremely high rank in Unreal Engine like a year ago. That was bad. That was bad for the company. That was bad for the family. We shouldn't do it. But I'm addicted. I don't know what to say. But
Ah,
I for a while, I used to live stream a lot.
mhm.
And when I first started doing Unreal Engine, I live streamed because I didn't know what I was doing, and there was like a pretty active Unreal Engine developer community. And literally, people would come on the chat and tell me stuff. They'd be like, "You should use data tables." Like, I don't even know what that is. Like,
Right.
it's just I streamed like all of like the first stuff I built, and I'll do phases of that. It was like really strict. It's like I'm gonna get up, we're gonna do it like these hours, record it, and I'm making content constantly, or I was. So it's like let's cut content from the live. I mean, the content that we're doing it right now, you know. But these days, lately, um, I pretty much try to like get up and like do a couple hours, and then I'm off doing something. Like my wife, she's a photographer. I'll go assist on like one of her shoots,
Ah,
and then I
cool.
have two kids. There's always like a doctor's appointment or something. So like it's these days I have to be a lot more fluid with my schedule. I can't just be like, oh, we're gonna have this like perfect chunk of time. It kind of just doesn't work that way for me because well, both I and my wife work from home, so we're able to do that. I mean, if I worked at a job, I would probably not be able to do that, or so I've heard. Um, but I'm a lot more flexible now, and as long as I'm like putting in the hours, at least something every day, just
Mhm.
at least it's like at least it's a couple hours a day. I'm pretty happy. But in the past, I was very rigid about like this perfect chunk of time. Like no one messed with me during that time. But with children, that's harder to accomplish, I think.
Yeah, yeah, you become a little more flexible. I feel that as well. Now, usually in the what's your favorite time of day question, we usually get like dusk, sunrise, things like that. And that also gives us kind of a sense of if people are more of a morning person or a night owl. You answering lunch, we're still a little bit in the dark about that. Are you an early riser? How late do you tend to stay up? What's your average sleep schedule? What can you share about that?
I, on my own, like if I'm helping with like my kids need to get up like early, go to the
Hmm.
bus. My wife usually manages the mornings, but if I am to be part of that schedule, that was like kind of like up at 6. Otherwise, I would get up at 7, and they're already
Hmm.
gone. And try to go to bed by like midnight. And if I'm like being like a good adult, I try to go to bed by like 10, but it usually
Hmm.
doesn't happen. I usually get like something like midnight. I'm trying to slot in like the like just put the kids to bed at 9 uh to midnight, play some WoW. I shouldn't
Yeah,
do it, but anyway,
yeah,
that's what we're like slowly carving carving out right now. Or
yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3. Or Baldur's Gate
Right.
3.
You'll get there. Yeah, and I'm also asking these questions because I'm always looking for tips on that stuff as well. I feel like a lot of times I don't get enough sleep, and part of it is I'll do like a little bit of revenge video gaming where it's like, oh man, I can't believe I worked like 17 hours today and it's midnight and I have to be up at 7. And like, yes, I should go to bed, but it's like I'm gonna play Astrobot or whatever for like a little while just so I can tell myself that I did something purely recreational that day. And then I wake up the next day and I'm too tired and need to find caffeine or something. So it becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and you travel like so much. Like my travel, I mean, since COVID, like I just like ended it, and then I like forgot how to do it. So
Yeah.
like Unreal Fest is like, and I went to like I think I went to GDC this year too, but like I was like that throws me off. I'm still like not back on the travel thing. But you were like just like after another. I need to sleep normally. That I get really destroyed if I'm like kind of off a schedule.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm about to level up with this travel happening next week because it wasn't too bad, going San Francisco, Seattle, 3 hours behind, it's okay. And then
Hmm.
going back to Florida, and that was helping to ease me back into the East Coast time zone. But now I'm
Right.
going over to Belgrade and Serbia and Vienna and
Yeah.
Berlin, Germany, and like that has much more potential to throw me off. So we'll see what happens there. The interesting thing too was I was across these three conferences, and I had one person from the Agile Lens team, Marshall, who was with me for the first leg of MetaConnect and SVVR and Unreal Fest. And then Dante on my team was with me for Unreal Fest, and then Halcyon in Orlando. And usually I don't have companionship as much when these trips are happening, but they
Hmm.
did make me realize that I am just wired in a kind of bizarre way because we would be doing the same things and I would see when they were like done and tired and like needed to go back to the room and take a break. And I'd still be like, oh, but there's these like 4 other events we need to do. And they'd be like, are you on cocaine? What's happening? But it's just something about me that really is like, I'm probably like a super extrovert who is just always trying to feed on the energy of more events and more people, like a vampire. But it seems to be going pretty well so far until inevitably I'll burn out and then, not be able to work for 3 years. We'll see.
Yeah, well, you definitely give off the energy in a good way though. I think in 2019 I had some of that, but like these days I'm just like I like coming home. I am a home person right now. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna hop on my Mac,
it's cozy.
animate a couple metahumans and push it to what's it called, the test flight.
Yeah, test flight.
Like I'm kind of happy with that right now. And even like the shoots that I do photo wise, my wife does the shoots and I help. I was like, we try to keep it like so local. I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know, but maybe that's I don't know. I feel like I say all that doesn't make maybe that doesn't like make that much sense. But I was like I really do not value traveling like I used to. I used
right.
to like just like I was like, oh, we're going to London for this shoot. That's great. Let's go. It's like, but I don't know. Maybe it's kids just getting kind of slowing down. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty homebody. I think the only thing I'm going to these days is Unreal Fest, and I don't even know
Okay.
if I'm gonna go in Florida because it's so
Oh,
soon. It's so soon, but it's
it's in
Disney World. And
June. Yeah.
I was like, my kids are like, what? Like, wait, I need to
I,
hear the venue. If the venue's like in this,
oh my goodness.
if it's in the Disney World, I was like, okay, we can't not do that. That sounds crazy, but like, but anyway,
Yeah.
it's the only one I come out for. Like, I'm kind of like not that into SIGGRAPH and the GTCs that much anymore.
I feel again the same way. We have so much in common, Matt. Like I also for many conferences, I'm kind of a one and done guy. Like I'm happy to be like, okay, now I know what SIGGRAPH, GDC, South by Southwest, what those feel like, and it takes a lot to bring me back. Unreal Fest is also really the only event that I take so much enjoyment of going back time and time again. The Florida question also, my kids were like, wait, Disney World, don't I get to come? Now the question though is because Epic Games keeps upping itself and the way we got to take over the Frank Gehry pop art museum, or
Mhm.
what was it called, like the Museum of Cultural
Mopop,
Pop or
something
something
like that.
like that.
Modern pop, I forget. Yeah,
Modern pop. The
something like
way
that. Yeah.
we got to take over that at Unreal Fest for the party, and then to
Mhm.
be like, oh my god, it's Darth Vader's actual suit from The Empire Strikes Back, and it's Aragorn's sword, and it's this very old copy of Lord of the Rings, and the Terminator, and I could go on and on, the Death Star. That was bonkers that we just had like a private opportunity to view all that. I would not put it past Epic Games for Disney to actually be like, yeah, we're gonna take over like Cinderella's freaking castle or whatever for the
I
party. And
I
yeah,
I could I think the collab of Epic and Disney, and they're putting out like their first like big thing together. I was like, that's probably worth going to. That's
yeah.
probably that may not happen like ever again. Those are two interesting companies coming together. And Epic's are the best. I don't know. I've
Yeah.
been to I feel like I've been to like all the other ones. It's like,
Mhm.
but there's are like especially cool. So yeah, we might have to like actually show up in in June. Sounds like a good one.
Yeah, yeah, and from what I heard, I think it's okay for me to say this, but what I'm hearing is that the call for proposals for the June Unreal Fest is going to go out like in a couple weeks. Like we're probably going to be getting these surveys, like, what did you think of Unreal Fest Seattle? Also, by the way, would you like to submit
I mean,
proposals for Unreal Fest in June?
it's relatively soon, right? So yeah.
Yeah, it's moving really quick. Oh, and I wanted to go back to an earlier thing you said. One thing I fundamentally disagree with you on is you had said that giving a workshop or like a live lab, that's more
Mhm.
stressful to you than a talk. I feel exactly the opposite way. This was the least stressful Unreal Fest I've ever had because it was the first one where I wasn't giving an on-stage talk that was
Mhm.
being recorded. I feel so much pressure if I know that something's going to be going up on Unreal Engine's YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
I was telling my friend Kevin, he's like, what are you afraid is going to happen? It's like, I guess the stress stream version of it is I'm afraid the video gets posted on Unreal Engine's YouTube channel and the top comment is something like, this is what an idiot would watch or something like that. So I feel so much more pressure to like get those talks right. Whereas the
Mm.
live labs, like it's just for those 30 people. And, like we can fumble over a couple
Yeah,
things.
what
We're going to
happens there
answer
stays
questions.
there as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I gave 3 live labs or was part of 3. Wit was
Yeah.
leading one about Unity. June was leading one about AR. I led one about the configurator templates. And
Mhm.
that felt like totally relaxed. And I would have been stressing out much more if I was giving a talk on stage like you were.
Yeah, I guess I'm talking more about like the prep because like literally I'm like putting together a PowerPoint and talking through the PowerPoint. Whereas I heard from Nick Justitian who ran the motion graphics one.
Yeah.
I won't go into all the details
Uh,
of it, but it was like there was a lot of crashing and like I don't even know if miscommunication is the right word of like what version of Unreal Engine should we be using? Like 5.5 has new. So I didn't have any of that. And so like he showed up, I met him, he was like, I gotta go back to the hotel and fix all this. Like so he had like a whole day of like, I'm not going to any conference. He had to fix all of his, his his workshop because it's like a live Unreal Engine project. It's game development, in a way, right? Like
yeah.
I was like, I finished mine like 2 months or two, not 2 months, like 2 weeks earlier, and then that was it. I didn't
Yeah.
have to do, I didn't have
You're
to
all
do
set.
anything. I just had to get up there and talk it. And like you, I talk a lot. It's not a problem. Like if someone just was like, "Hey, this is live to like everyone and Unreal Engine," I was like, "Okay, whatever." Like I'm pretty used to that. But the workshops, there's just a lot of technical stuff that like if it goes wrong, it's like you got to go back to the hotel and work this out. So
Yeah, and
I
in
meant that
some
side.
cases you can cover for that stuff. Like one of my favorite things about live teaching is that you do get pretty good at pivoting. Like if something is crashing or something's going wrong, you just find a way around it. Last year when I was giving a MetaHuman workshop at Unreal Fest in New Orleans, I had done a test beforehand with my own like Nighthawk router to make sure that all the live link data was going to transfer, and it
Mhm.
worked. But I didn't realize that as everyone else came in, that I needed like more ports set up. Like it was going to work
Mm.
for one person, but only one person at a time.
That's
Corey
fine.
Strasberger's workshop like had all that set up and all the live link data came through correctly. I didn't properly prep, so everyone wasn't able to get the live link data, but I had like backup files where it's like, okay, here's something that's already pre-imported, and that was okay.
Mm.
The other mistake I made during the workshop was I had listed it as an intermediate workshop, and I just assumed everyone coming would be intermediate and will have used MetaHuman Creator before. But I had
Yeah.
so many people, like I'd be like, okay, everyone, let's open up this map and hop into this. And I had people being like, wait, how do you open a map? And I'd be like, oh man, like we're trying to do more complicated things, but there's people in here, like you don't want to ignore them, but like, this isn't the workshop for you. So that's a little tricky.
Yeah, the workshops are wild too because they just like there's only 30 seats
Hmm.
and like 3,000 people coming, so they just sell out like instantly. But there's no like I don't know how to put this. There's no merit to who
Yeah.
gets. There's no system to it. It's just like who showed up first. It's kind of just like yeah, that makes the the audience sort of like random. It's just hard
Yeah.
to say like. But that being said, when I went to the Corey's workshop, Xanadu's workshop,
Mhm.
I was like I actually knew like almost everyone like in there like to some degree, and I was like, oh, these are the people I would have thought.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
was,
true. Yeah, that's a good point. I think
the
there was a lot
animation
of
animation mocap people and virtual production on that sort of stuff, and Corey's workshop they smoothed it out because I know Juan and a bunch of the people who produced that one from at New Orleans and then produced it again. In New Orleans they had like 5 mocap stations at once. That's when the Wi-Fi gets all screwed up and it's like, oh, no
yeah.
one's. I'm like, am I connecting to yours? Like, so for the Corey, they're just like, we have one performer. That's it. Like, not not 5, all at once in the same room. So they sorted that side of it out.
Yeah. And shout out to Brian Frager, who, very kindly was happy to be in an accent suit for like 4 hours and just do whatever was asked of him. People got to direct him, they got to make him do all sorts of silly things. It was great.
Yeah, they put the second one over lunch, and I was like, I cannot skip lunch. So I was
Oh,
I sadly came at the end of the lunch one. I was like, I'm not missing lunch. I'm sorry. That's
yeah. I was thinking exactly about the tip you'd kindly given our audience about what to do in Real Fest. Yeah, sit down at lunch tables, meet a lot of cool people. But I found myself torn a little bit with this Unreal Fest, and I wonder if you had the same issue at all, which was the speakers lounge this year. I don't think they did this in the past. They also served lunch in the speakers lounge, and sometimes there
damn.
were like
Was it
some
good?
little extra special treats, like some extra
Damn.
things that everyone else didn't get. And those were the opportunities to sit down with like Clifford the Big Red Dog, and like the big muckety mucks at Epic Games who just happened to be there in the speakers lounge. And so that's where you got to have some of these like much more kind of high level VIP conversations, but fewer people, and you're not as likely to sit down at a table with 30 really cool people all at once. So yeah, I wasn't
Okay.
sure if you were aware of that
Damn the FOMO.
tension.
The post FOMO. I never even went to the speakers lounge. But I could see that that would be the case. And there was the underground, the Unreal Underground that
Yeah.
like basically nobody went to because it was like really far out. I was talking to them about it like because I wanted the hat. I got the hat.
Yep.
You had to
Yep.
do all these things. They're like if you even come down here, that's that's the accomplishment because it's way out and it's
Yeah.
like to go that far. So the speakers lounge was the same thing to me. I was like I just never.
Too
Anytime I would
far.
walk out, it'd be like, "Oh hi." There was just never. I was like, "I have nothing to do. I'll maybe wander up here." So I never actually even went up there.
Yeah.
The other thing about Unreal Fest is all of the, I mean, all of the like I'd say the secret meetings or the invite only like meetings. Like I used to go to the M&E ones, media entertainment ones. Those were happening. There's ones for automotive, and
Mhm.
there's a bunch of these other ones that are happening as well that you're not supposed to sneak into. But anyway, like so there's all these other like interesting talks happening or not talks, but like meetings as well. But they
Mhm.
are usually like there's usually some like yeah key people there, so it's a little bit more control. But if you wander around enough, you can you can kind of see those happening as well, and a
Yeah,
bunch
there
of
was a
bunch of
lot.
dinners and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that happening. There was some kind of summit, I think, the day before Unreal Fest started, and I made the mistake of not only accidentally sneaking into one of those, but also stealing their food because I thought it was just like available for anyone who's like, "Oh, I'm not like part of this group at all."
Yeah.
I've also typically been in this funny position where I've been like half Epic staff and half
Yeah,
like external person.
I
This
consider
was
you staff when you're there, pretty much. Yeah.
yeah, this was the very first Unreal Fest, including Unreal Fest Prague, where I wasn't given both a staff shirt and an attendee shirt, which took
Hmm.
some pressure off me because when you're there as staff, there is a lot more responsibility, and you're supposed to be more like representing Epic Games and not so much your own company.
Hmm.
So it was nice to just be in full attendee mode. I also didn't have to TA a bunch of the labs like I usually do. But yes, I felt like very like, oh, I should not be at all these like very clearly internal or like invite only kinds of things. I did get to do some stuff with the educators. They had a really lovely separate dinner for that. The AEC group had a really good separate dinner. But it is a little bit sad when you realize like, oh, there's someone who really should have been at this VIP invite only event, and for some reason they weren't invited, and you want to find a way to like bring them in.
Yeah. Usually I know like one or two people who like went to it, so they can kind of give me like if anything happened. But it's like I've been to a couple of them. It's I don't know. The news gets around. I know that there's like usually like a couple like key insights and whatnot, but like I don't know. I feel like, well, especially when I feel like I end up hearing that stuff anyway. That comes back around. But
Yeah.
yeah, lots of stuff going on. I can't. I'm just like picturing like the Disney one. If you like walk into the, there's gonna be like stormtroopers and like Ewoks, and like all this. Maybe I'm hyping it up too much. What's gonna happen in there?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much they could do, and of course, like that's exactly what you're describing. That's what was in my head heading over to HalseyCon, the Star Wars event where we were showing this VR experience, because I spent that entire convention being like, oh, like what if this is similar to what Unreal Fest
Oh,
is
and like
next
one of your
year?
posts like went viral or something. That didn't. Was that on Twitter? It was like, was it people
Yeah,
crying in the experience?
people
Is
were
that what happened?
crying. Yeah, yeah, I haven't.
That's that's cool.
I didn't expect that post to go viral because it was just kind of like, hey, this is a VR experience we've been working on, and like I didn't even show any
Yeah.
footage from it,
Yeah, it was just people
but
walking around.
it's just
Yeah.
people walking around that you couldn't even really see, but like yeah, tears
Yeah.
in their eyes, and we got some nice testimonials from people.
Uh,
But yeah, and that's an experience that I certainly hope that next year at Unreal Fest we're showing in a further along version of it. The short version, just for anyone who's like, what are Matt and Alex talking about here? We went to the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser experience back in July of last year. The Agile Lens team did a bunch of like scanning digital twin stuff of the experience. We started to put that into like an open source GitHub Unreal Engine project for people to kind of create a new recreation of this experience, which is now since closed. And we've also started to add in some like AI recreations of some of the characters. So what we had at this HalseyCon fan convention was a lot of people who either thought they would never get to see anything from this experience because it was very expensive and hard to get into, and them
mhm.
getting very excited and emotional that like, oh, this is kind of what it was like, and getting a taste of that. Then we had people getting very emotional because they did do the experience, and they had these kind of spatial memories of like standing in a spot and being like, I was here with my dad, a year ago, and we took our last picture here together, and now he's
Mm.
no longer with us. Or
Were they all in
they're
like? Could they see each other, or were they like all in like one space, or was that
yeah,
like the way
so
that?
in this version, it was all like a single player experience, and it was mostly just like
I
a
see. Okay. Yeah.
architectural walkthrough with a
Hmm.
few little interactive things like lightsabers you could pick up and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We're also currently prepping this year's version of Christmas Carol, which, going back to our earlier discussion, like mobile only, standalone, and that has a very robust multiplayer system. So certainly, once we've ironed all that out, we'll port that over pretty easily to the Halcyon experience. And not only do we want people to be able to be in there at the same time, but we've gotten to meet some of the actors who were playing these roles in this immersive theater experience. And they are like very excited about the idea of going back into the virtual version of this world as their avatars, like as their
Hmm.
characters. And whether there's something scripted or they're just kind of walking around as their character, they're pretty excited to kind of have another opportunity to breathe life into those roles.
Nice, nice. And you
Yeah.
have this metahumans. You're doing like like volumetric capture. Or?
Yeah, it's all metahumans.
Oh, metahumans.
We well, and here's the tricky thing too when it comes to like making the characters is these actors would swap roles. So you had characters like Wraith Cole and Captain Keevan and Sammy and whatnot, and sometimes you'd have 10 different actors who would play each of those roles, and they would swap and bounce around.
Oh, okay.
So
Huh.
my Wraith Cole is a very different Wraith Cole from a lot of other people's Wraith Cole. So you can like do the costume, but then the face is going to be, you almost want it to be like a little bit more generic so people can
Hmm.
project onto it the kind of character that they remember from their experience.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I've always wanted to do like, well, I guess I have, but I like, I still like just the idea of like, metahumans in VR is still
Yeah.
cool. So AVP will be my next version of that stuff. I mean, I've got like the whole mocap system because I was like, we got to make like the metahumans move, but like where to put that, right, is like the business question, I suppose.
Yeah. And speaking of things that have gone viral, how many people do you think have now seen you with a lightsaber bouncing around in your basement?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, a good amount. Yeah, it's funny because like I spoke for Vicon, who makes the optical mocap system. Um, I have at GDC, and then I went to like the Mocap Society like mixer, and like
Yeah.
so many people from like the actual like mocap industry were like, oh, we love your work, and just like I was like, I'm in my basement like doing something like which is probably horrible quality mocap, but I think when the pro mocap world's pretty small,
Yeah.
and two, like they can't really talk about it ever because it's like,
Mm.
yep, they're working on like Star Wars 9. They can't really.
Right.
I just, they'll never talk about it ever. Like literally, you'll never see the footage from it. So I think it was cool for people to see like their job kind of like being done in a more a somewhat like YouTube mainstream way. So it was cool just to see like how many. I think like roughly the entire mocap industry, because it's small, I think saw that video. So I think just that alone, I think is was made that kind of project like pretty cool. Got to meet a
Yeah.
lot of mocap people.
And you're certainly just making a lot of these tools and techniques more accessible to people. Like, obviously you've had your awesome Twitch streams where you're literally walking people through something you're working on, but a lot of these videos you're posting, it just like you're saying, these are things that you don't generally get to see even as like a work in progress, like, hey, here's the thing I did over 10 minutes, because so much of it is protected by insane NDAs and IP laws. So yeah, I think there's so many things that you are showing people where that's the first time they've gotten to see it in a not polished finished movie kind of context. So if I think about like why are some of the reasons why people get really excited about Matt Workman, it's because of all these ways that you're kind of educating the masses about what's out there and what's possible, especially what one person can be doing in their basement without a 300-person crew.
Yeah, yeah, that is something a lot of people told me, especially like when someone like comes up to me at like Unreal Fest or something, like it's like, and they know me, they're like, hey, I love your thing. I'm just like, I wonder like what part like
Yeah.
we're talking about. Like it would be different at like NAB or Cinegear or something like that
Right.
than at this. But yeah, there was a lot of virtual production people that are like, they're like, during COVID, you're the first person I ever saw do virtual production, and like that's what I do now. I like have a volume, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And I was like, that's great. I was like, I'm still down here on my green screen, these two little
Right.
things, and like
Yeah,
my
no
little,
one has sent you a volume yet. It'll happen.
Epic was we were going to. Um, but yeah, so it's yeah, I think that's what it'd been. It's like it was a lot of like baby's first virtual production, which makes the project I did with Epic and the Mega Grant, it was successful, I suppose then, because that was kind of I was like I need to just like make something, but I'm stuck in my house, and they're like, okay, here you go, like
Here's the thing for your
go for it,
house.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess that was a successful venture then. It worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, that support is so great. And do you ever let your kids come play with all your toys down there, or is it pretty locked down?
If they want to, they kind of don't care. I have some picture of my kids somewhere when I was doing like green screen virtual production stuff with like the camera tracking. I rebuilt like a Minecraft world, and I was
Mhm.
playing the drums in it. And
Ah,
we have like a family photo from a capture of that of my kids being in like the Minecraft world. Like that's pretty much it though. They kind of don't care because
that's
it's
that's really
like
funny.
what their parents do. They're like, ah, okay, whatever. Like,
Yeah, they
so
don't
but
realize how cool their dad is. Do they seem to be headed in a direction where you think they might want to be involved with some aspect of their world, or they're like, no, I'm going to be a ballerina or whatever else?
yeah, my daughter does do ballet.
There you go.
Um, Yeah, my son's like pretty technical. Like I tried to, I kind of like forced him into it a little bit, so he's I think he's rebelling by only working in Blender. That's fine. Him and his friends are making like a Blender, movie short TV show thing, you know. So he's like, I'm not doing game dev, I'm doing movies. He's doing
Wow.
again, I'm looking at Digital Circus and like a lot of these things. I was like, I gave him quite the PC to work on too. He can cook on that thing. But yeah, he's into 3D and stuff like that, but not specifically Unreal Engine. And we did start with Unity for quite a while because it's like kind of like some people consider it more approachable in the beginning. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I debate that a lot with my kids because I threw them into the fire pretty quickly with like, here's how to do blueprints in Unreal. I
Yeah,
didn't go quite to like C++. And then we kind of dialed it back a little bit to be like, here's some UEFN stuff. And I've also thought like, because I also come from a Unity background, like there are some
yeah,
things that are simpler in Unity, but I'd rather just like have the whole Unreal Engine ecosystem seem familiar to them, regardless of what they want to do. So I'm not trying to like pressure them to become, VR developers or anything like that, but I am trying to at least make sure they understand how powerful of a tool Unreal Engine is. And there's like 100,000 careers that they could decide they want to do someday where this will be a valuable tool in their toolbox, so to
we
speak.
could we can expose them to it, you know. That's about it. My
Yeah.
son does do like coding classes and stuff. I forget what language. They're just like all around coding, so it's like JavaScript, PHP, that sort of stuff. Just like general programming, and it's like whatever you want to do, you know. I feel like everything is like so accessible these days to learn too. It's like if you want to deep dive into like any, tech stack at this point, it's like there's going to be some influencer trying to sell you a course on it, and it's probably pretty good, and you can just pick it up, right? It's like kind of like this more like the general interest and like, where you want to deep dive. If they ever want to get into Unreal Engine, they surely could, or Unity, or like any of these things. I think these days it's like pretty accessible to like to get into that stuff.
Yeah. One debate we have quite a bit on the podcast is going to school or buying courses versus being self-taught. Now, you've got a pretty interesting mix of like filmmaking and computer science, and then obviously a lot of things you're self-taught in as well. What's your kind of philosophy and like how people can actually break into these spaces?
Like before COVID, right?
Hmm.
So like specifically with film, and I think even with software, because you couldn't work from home back then. You really you needed to have moved to a hub. Right? So
Hmm.
like I moved to New York City like the day after I graduated college. People I know moved to LA, that sort of thing. I was like, kind of a cliche, but like when I moved to New York City, the only way I was getting on sets was as like a PA intern on like, because there were so many,
Hmm.
you know. And I think it was the same with the games to some degree, and anything like that. It's like you had to work there in person. So that's what I would have said. I still think that there's probably some validity to that. But now everything is so remote in
Hmm.
software. With film production, you obviously would still need to be like there, but like I don't know. It's very different. And we look at sort of like the possible erosion of entry level jobs, which is why you would have moved to a sector or to like a hub before, sort of not existing at the moment. Though we're sort of on like the collapse of, we're in like, the growing and collapsing of the universe. We're sort of on a collapse at the moment, and,
Hmm.
consolidation and mass layoffs and whatnot. But it's hard to say now. Like, does it make sense to do that? Or like, do you have to like actually get extremely good at some skill before you can even attempt that? So I don't know. And I'm looking at my kids, they have a certain window before they're going to college and have to figure that out too. It's kind of like, I'm not sure. But before COVID, I would have been like, you need to move your ass to New York, LA, if that's the type of stuff, like Austin, somewhere like hubby where there's
Yeah.
lots of people and more opportunities. But now yeah, it's very different with remote work. Like,
Yeah.
can kind of be anywhere if it's software side.
Yeah, and the jobs that I think a lot of people assume like absolutely needed to be site specific do have some remote options. I remember a video you made a few years ago where I think you were acting as like a DP or something for the shoot from I think your home where there was kind of a raid going on. There was kind of this do you remember
Yeah.
the video
Yeah.
I'm talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was like a recreation of the Osama bin Laden operation.
That's right.
Yeah. That was
What was that
cool.
like doing that remotely?
Um, would have been nice to be in like a volume with that with the director
Mhm.
and whatnot.
Sure.
But it was pretty cool. And like, I've only done like these like kind of small like remote projects, but like I look at like Epic and they're still remote. Like
Yeah.
everything they build. I mean, they have to get together sometimes like in person for like some of these like on-site things, but like the whole engine and Fortnite and UEFN, those people are like everywhere. It's
Yeah.
completely remote. So like they're like, fully dogfooding the like, remote capabilities of Unreal Engine, and also just how you structure an organization that big and push that much push that much code.
Yeah.
But I'm just one person. I have no how you run a machine that big remotely. I'm not sure. I'm still just a company of one person because I'm afraid to hire people. I've hired contractors, but it's like I can't be responsible for another human. It's a it's not really uh not my specialty for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, not yet. Amazing. How are you feeling these days about UEFN and Fortnite? Do you feel that because you made an amazing little, again, kind of like educational tutorial map that takes you through like cinematography and that sort of thing, and there's a film set. Is that something you want to continue to work on? Do you see benefits there? Tell me a little bit about how you're feeling.
Yeah, so I was in the UEFN alpha because I was like hard into metahumans at that point, like
Hmm.
doing all the VTuber and Vicon stuff with metahumans. So they kind of brought me in. It was kind of like, what would you use this for, whatnot, talking about some of the business model stuff. But I was basically in there. I was like, I just put my mocap in there. I was like, here it goes. I brought in like a custom metahuman, and I was like, we really need like regular metahumans in here. And I kind of left after I built like a map. These days I'm like, I get invited to all the UEFN things from the alpha and whatnot. Like, no, like I feel like I know like all the creators from it. It's like, but from a business model at this point, um, because I have like a pretty big like following of like
Hmm.
customers who would whatever I built, I think there's like a decent number of people that were just like, sure, try it, let's go for it. They would give it a shot. But
Yeah.
like converting people that don't play Fortnite into UEFN maps that are free is like
Hmm.
impossible. It's like
Right.
it's really, really hard. It's just, it's on your Mac or your PC, it's like 100 gigs, something like that to download, which is like that's already it's already pretty rough. Um, and then you have to put in this like kind of phone number that like let me tell you, no filmmaker if knows where to put that number. It would be the amount of like just help I would have to get people to do that. It's like so the acquisition's hard. There's a ton of friction getting them in, and then like it's still like coded with it still looks like Fortnite, which
Right.
a lot of filmmakers like will not bring anything that looks like a game on set. It can't look
Hmm.
like a game. So like all the stuff I built has to look more like appish. But so like those are all like the friction things, and it's getting paid from it is certainly like another question as well. But the platform itself is incredible. It's like the
Hmm.
most incredible thing I've ever seen. And I would have like a couple. I was with a lot of epic people for 30 days doing this LED wall shoot for a while. So we had a lot of
Yeah.
days. So I was just telling him, I was like, I'm so sick and tired of starting up my own perf force. I don't want to
Right.
have to source control. I was like,
Hmm.
remote. Have you ever set up like a remote multi-user perf force? I was like,
Ugh.
please never, please no. And so I just like tell my colleagues, it's like I just wish that like that would be managed. I wish that you guys would do that in Epic. I was like, I wish you would do that so I don't have to do that. And that is literally what UEFN is. It's like your whole
Yeah.
project, boop, onto the
So
cloud.
easy.
Everyone can push it down. When you hit build, you don't really their server builds it for like all the platforms for you. So
Yeah.
much of the basis is like it's natively multiplayer. It's amazing. But as it stands now, it's like I can't really flip it. I can't really use it as like a free web hosting perforced Unreal Engine instance, but that's what I
Right.
would like to use it for. That's like the Vision UE6. So it's like I forget how many years it's they said that and it was like supposed to be like it's like 10-year vision and it's now like we're like 4 years into it or something like that.
Hmm.
So by like 2030, something like that. I feel like, that was how I would want to build all my things. Though I really, and I know they're working on it, but we need iOS so hard.
Uh,
It was one of my main takeaways from the conference was that it's like, yeah, we're putting it on the Apple Store. Sorry, it's like that's just the only way in the US that we're gonna get that out there. But once it's as accessible as Roblox is
mhm.
on cross-platform, and like you can just straight charge for it and all that stuff, it's like the perfect platform. It's just Roblox, but it's Unreal Engine, and you can
Yeah.
strip away the Fortnite battle royale. But so I both like it's like the future for sure, but it's hard for me to build my product there. That being said, I'm building stuff there to kind of like prepare for it. But like at one point it was like, hey, UEFN's out. What are we gonna build? I'm building Cinder Tracer 2 and UE5. And I did that for a year. And I was like, okay, we kind of came back and looked at it again. I was kind of like, you guys, it's not gonna it's not gonna go on the iOS. So I was like, I'm gonna build an iOS app right now. It's like, so I keep kind of coming back to it. I'll probably build some stuff kind of for fun, but it's not quite there where I can put my business like full time into it. But I think by like UE6,
Yeah.
hopefully that would be great. No more Perforce for me. I
Ugh,
won't have to
I
set up my own
know.
Perforce.
Oh man. And I hope some of that, especially the source control system over there, I want to see more of that make its way over to Unreal. I mean, thank goodness we now have UEF and metahumans over in Unreal. That what a long time coming that was after. Oh yeah, I know it's like kind of we kind of do,
They kind of
but
like, yeah, the the parentheses are there, but I downloaded them. Not really. I don't think they're like really here yet.
yeah.
Yeah, with the source control, I like forget if what's public and what's not.
Mm,
But yeah, something's cooking. Something's cooking on that front. So that's good. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. You were making me think also of because you get involved with so many different aspects of Unreal Engine, you're over in UEFN and you are kind of this one man army. Do you do anything to make sure that how do I phrase this? That you know how to go back to old projects and like pick up where you left off. Like, do you have any kind of institutional knowledge base of like Google Docs or videos that you make just for yourself where it's like, this was a really complicated thing that I had to do and I
Yeah.
need to remember how to do it 5 years from now?
Yeah, so I mean, I try to comment, I try to build like logically with
Yeah.
like class names, and that's tough to remember, like, how all the systems work. I mean, the answer is no. Anyone has, I have to relearn my old code base. There's no
Yeah.
question. But a big goal of the last 2 or 3 years has been to get everything onto UE5, which
Mhm.
sounds obvious now, but I come from an Unreal Engine 4 background where like all my projects are 4.27
Yeah.
and they're live, so we're not live updating them to 5. It's not to still, I'm never going to, and that will always be 4.27.
Yeah.
But all my new projects all basically have something to do with the film industry. They all share very similar assets, even the
Mhm.
UEFN ones, and they're all UE5 based now. So, and they're pretty much, I think they're all 5.4 now. I'm not going 5.5 any soon. We're gonna
Yeah.
stay 5.4 for a
Not
while.
yet.
Yeah. I'll probably, I kind of skip versions. I'll probably skip 5.5 and maybe 5.6. We're gonna see if there's anything worth it because I need stability for iOS. I was just like, let's not even like.
Yeah.
I'm not even using any of the new features for the most part. Though there were some improvements for iOS, I guess, with 5.5. But like, anyway. But the goal has been to get like all the latest projects, which I have like 4 right now. It's like they're
Mhm.
all 5. They all share similar assets. Even some of them share similar components. I design everything in components and interfaces, and I can share those around, and I kind of can build them up like individually. So that's how I try to keep like all these projects together. And UEFN as well. Like I build all my sets in UEFN grid. So
Mm.
even like, which is like 512, 512, 384, power 2. So
Yeah.
when you snap, it's 248, 16, 32, 64, 128. It's not base 5 or base 10 that UEFN works. So all my games since UE5 are actually built like they're Fortnite. Um, and a lot of the ways that I build the control rigs and the sequencer stuff is actually also very Fortnite as well, because like sequencers are one of like the only things you can like actually do in Fortnite right now, UEFN.
Yeah.
So they're all kind of secretly UEFN centric,
Mhm.
but UE5 obviously we can do much more. So just try to keep all the projects UE 5.4, but kind of like understand like how they would convert into a UEFN. Though UEFN's about to have scene graph, which is about to absolutely destroy and rebuild how Unreal Engine 5 works from the ground up. It's going to be way more like Unity, way more modular, less inheritance. So that's going to be a rough one when it's scene graph verse in UE6. That's going to be we probably won't even recognize it. It's going to be
Yeah.
very different looking. Yeah.
Wow. To throw out a wild prediction, I'm trying to get this from a few people, based on intuition only. When do you think we're going to see UE6?
Oh, 10 years from when did they start talking about it? I don't know. It's like 2030, something like that.
You think 2030? All right, we'll say 2030.
Yeah.
We'll check back in a few years, see how
What is it now?
we're doing there.
24? It's
I,
24
I
right
mean,
now. Yeah, I
and
feel like that's about right.
my instinct has been that we're not going to see 5.27 the way we made it to 4.27, and maybe it'll still be the same amount of time.
It would have been
um
like 2 a year, something like ish.
They're
Something
doing
like
about two a
that.
year.
Yeah.
Yes. So actually, yeah, that's a good point. Like there's no way we'd make it to 5.27 based on just the rate things are going right now. Um, but
Who
yeah, we'll see.
knows?
And I wonder if it's going to be like scene graph or something like that that is like the nanite lumen equivalent of like here's the big overhaul of what we're doing to make
Here
this a new release.
here's this is not we love Unreal Engine. Let me tell you, my entire life.
Mhm.
I do get slightly concerned right now because I was like, wow, the modeling tools are so good. These last updates, I had breakfast with Kieran Ritchie, who just is an epic, and he worked the last year on 5.5 skeletal mesh editor. Now he's going back to control rig. Is he going to control rig? No, he's going retargeting.
Mm,
Um, I'm starting to do a lot of my workflow almost entirely in Unreal Engine.
mhm,
So it starts to get a little bit interesting when it's like, oh, I model everything in Unreal Engine. I UV it here. All my assets are U assets. They're not
mm,
even. You can technically like GLT that GLTF them out or FBX them out, but like they're pretty U assety. I was like,
mhm,
oh, my entire workflow is happening in Engine,
mhm.
which is a little bit not concerning, but it's something to think about. I was like, wow, I really can't do any of this outside of this ecosystem.
Mm.
It's like, and the pricing models change, and so like my studio doesn't get hit by the pricing model changes too hard. But I know a lot of studios that did
Oh yeah.
that have like, they're like all of a sudden we want to be paying, they want 30 seats of the new commercial license. It's like that's not a lot. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, but if you're used to paying Maya commercial licenses and stuff, it's like on par, and Unity's as well.
Hmm.
But like yeah, because like the old model, which I don't know, things move faster. So what's the old model? But it's like you kind of build everything in Maya or Blender, and you can put it
Hmm.
wherever. And I
Right.
still kind of think about that, but it's like, but as the tools become more and more specific, it's like you can't really like. I think eventually you're not gonna really do surgery on metahumans outside of the ecosystem. It's already
Mm,
close to that, like because they didn't have to make that. They didn't need to make that metahuman DNA
right. The Maya
plugin.
stuff.
They didn't need to make that. They did because like that's what the industry was using. They're still like animating in Maya. But like eventually it's like all those tools are only in engine.
Yeah.
And so that's a that's a slightly different ecosystem. But I think that's the way that it's, there's efficiencies there for sure. And if you publish an Epic Game Store, you don't pay the fees and whatnot. But it's certainly getting to be quite the
Walled garden kind of thing.
yeah, I'm not sure even if wall is the right word, but it's certainly like all in one place. And
One
it's
stop
like,
shop.
yeah, because like, not that I see this ever happen, but like, when the Unity runtime fee happened, it was like, hey, I'm taking all my stuff and we're gonna move it to Godot. It's like, yeah, I don't think we're moving anything
Hard.
from Religion to Godot. Not really. It's like I'm building from scratch again, So it's like, it's interesting is that is this ecosystem becomes like so like it's so powerful that you don't have to leave it, but it's like, oh wow, I'm like completely dependent on it. Which I think is a good thing. It's like, because like if I wasn't going to build it in Unreal, if we were going to build it, if I was going to go rebuild my tech stack in Unity, I probably would have to build it very differently anyway. So it's
Right.
not like I'm coming along. But anyway, it's a good thing. But it's also this other. It's also like I've never been. I was like, oh, I could literally do everything in one app. That's never even been a question that would be possible before, unless it was like Notepad and you're like a programmer, or something. It's like, yeah, I don't need any other program. I just need Xcode or whatever, But yeah, it's that ecosystem is getting very strong and interdependent on itself. It's like you can't really. You're not gonna. I feel like you will not be able to even properly do Unreal Engine development out. Like there's no part of it that you would go external for, which is new for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse for sure. I think these are valuable things to be concerned about, especially for anyone who's working for a company where they do feel like at some point they might feel overwhelmed by licensing fees and everything happening now with Fab and Quixel. I also heard that it's actually the way metahumans get distributed, like the licensing for that's changing as
Oh,
well.
oh, we're
It
about to
adds
hit
some
a whole.
complexity.
Yeah, a month from now when when Fab is like out, or let's give it a year.
Mm,
I think it's going to be very different. I think the next, if you look at how fast UEFN works and updates and how much like the business model changes like that, that's going to hit Unreal Engine developers, and it already has been. It's like that speed of change is going to increase over the, like,
yeah.
because like they're not a public company, but they have a lot of investments
A lot of
from some big
investors.
companies. It's like there's going to be a lot changing, which I'm down for, But like, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of change in the next
Hmm.
10 years, in the next couple of years, But I'm happily making. I feel like the way I think about it now, it's like you make like an app and you put it on Steam or you put it on EGS or you put it on the App Store and you sell it, and then you get money from that directly. It's like that's some dinosaur way of thinking. I feel like UEFN is like a much that's like the YouTube model of game development right now. Not quite Roblox's yet, but like it's kind of like a you get an engagement based payout, with an
Yeah.
ever evolving algorithm. Scary to live by the algorithm. But yeah, I feel like the way that I make stuff and make a living now, it's like that's like the old way. I might
Hmm.
as well be giving like CD keys and like a hard disk. Here you go. Make sure you type in the CD key when it's to activate it. So I think we're definitely like on this like by 2030. Like there's none of that.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
entire thing is like run on UEFN or Roblox or like some a much bigger system, which I hope hopefully for that means like I don't have to program enhanced input and like all this other like multiplayer stuff that's just I consider it infrastructure because I'm not an engineer.
Right.
I'm like I don't care about that. Just make it work. I want to build like the fun stuff.
Hmm.
So I hope it becomes more of that. That's my the optimistic side of it. It's like I don't have to deal with the stuff I don't want to deal with. I just get to build in the ecosystem. Like if you look at the UEFN people, they're not battling enhanced input and common UI and like
No.
being like, oh, I spent 2 months making a start menu. They don't have any of
Right.
that, like it's like they just build the game and like if it did well, people engage with it. So I think, that version of it for what I build, I'm pretty excited for.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like all these predictions we're getting in this episode toward the future. By the way, Matt, before I forget, do you have a tutorial for us today?
I have something I can show. Does that
Cool.
work?
Yeah, let's give you a second to queue up whatever you might want to show. And then my segue question is, Matt, I've seen you do a lot of drumming. My father's a drummer.
Oh.
I'm a okay drummer, but not nearly as good as you or my father was. Uh, do you have an album or any place people
Oh.
could find music you've been a part of before?
uh, None that I'd want to share. No, but I
Were you
have
in a
been.
band in like college or
Oh,
anything like that?
yeah, yeah, in like high school and whatnot, but none that I would like to be on the internet. No,
Yeah.
but my drumming exploits with the Vicon system and uh the green screens and whatnot. That is still someone at Unreal Fest was like, maybe it was you, maybe it was, yeah, I think it was you actually. It was probably about like tips. It was like, don't ask people. Maybe it was Corey. Anyway, it was like I was like, don't. It was Corey Williams. It was like, don't ask people what they do, is ask them what they like to do.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
pretty sure that was the Corey
That's a
one.
good one.
And I was like, so like anytime I met with someone, I was like, yeah, I do all this like blah 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 blah. But like, but I really want to do is like music in Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, that's a whole genre. It's like, having
Mhm.
like, it's like, and it was interesting how many people also vibed with that. They were like, yeah, like if I could really just do anything I wanted, I was like, that's what we would do. I was like, hell yeah. There's people who come from live events in Unreal Engine. It's like that is what they do, touch designer and stuff like that. But it's like
Mhm.
another band. But I was like, yeah, we just want to get like instruments and like jam out with like, visuals happening. That is, and there were a lot of people who were like, oh yeah, that's actually where I come from. I was like, me too, kind of. But
Yeah.
anyway, but music. So I have to share my screen. Is that how this works?
Go ahead. Yeah, do a regular Zoom share. Should be pretty straightforward.
I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
Is it entire screen and then I like alt tab to it?
Try entire screen. That way if yeah, there we go.
Okay.
We're at it. Cool. Looks good.
Yeah.
All
Let's see.
right. What are we looking at, Matt?
Do you see things, huh? Do we see things
Yeah,
here?
we see a little courtyard. We're gonna play some
Okay.
Foursquare.
Yeah. Okay. Let me hit play on this jam. Oh, is there music? Do you hear this music?
Oh, I do not hear music.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
when you
Good. Good.
okay.
Because I hear it anyway. So this is like something I built like this week after Unreal Fest. I came home and 3D modeled this.
Ah,
It's an
nice.
it's an Airy Trinity system, and so I'm using my mouse to control this, which isn't the ideal input.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is like basically like a steady cam, except you have control over roll, which is like spinning the frame like this, and then you can tilt up and down. So this is one of the things I'm working on, and I just built the iOS version of this today.
Cool.
Um, so people do this like in real life. So one person's like walking around with this like camera stabilizer, and then someone else is controlling the head. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of these like dual operator scenarios that happen in real life that are very hard to practice for. So those are the kind of scenarios that I build. So this is the rig. It's a metahuman.
Mhm.
And then this like kind of like monstrosity control rig on the side of it. Let's see here. My iOS version's a lot smaller than this, which I do like. Close up this jam. So where is that sequence? I think it's this one. Hop into this. So let me find the Trinity control rig here. I
It's
think
been really fun, by the way, watching you become a pose master and figure out all these ways to create a pose library. Yeah.
yeah, I went through like a whole VTuber phase of things, and it ended in the Vicon system over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not like a 3D animator by trade or tech animator. But I am kind of a tech animator now. That's what a bunch of people told me after my talk. They're like, "Are you a tech artist from like games?" I was like, "Not really, but I guess these days I sort of am."
Yeah.
But so this rig here is a custom control rig, and it's attached to a metahuman, and the metahuman just kind of like grabs onto it. So the metahuman animation is just like kind of normal posing. But this type of control rig here, this thing is I don't know. I just build these all the time now, and I just get better and better of it. I forget
Yeah.
how this came about, but like at one point, like I was getting like one-on-one tutored by Epic on
Oh,
on control rig, so I had a bit of
so
like an
cool.
advantage in the early days of it, and I still know a lot of them. But so this is the control rig for it. So I designed it to be just like these like kind of simple orbs
Mhm.
of, or these like kind of sliders, and then there's like a metahuman here.
Yeah.
So that's how this rig looks. And if I jump into the control rig, which if you compile it while it's open, it will crash. There's like almost no question. Um,
What version of Unreal are we in?
this is 5.4.
5.4.
So I've used control rig since it like came. I forget like what version of like it's like one of the early 4.2s it first came out.
Hmm.
And they literally pulled me in. They were like, you can use this for like the camera rigs you build. And I was like, I have no idea what that means. And there's like over the years they kind of like showed me like more and more of it. So let's see this rig. So it's I guess I could open the skeleton because like this is actually rigged already. It's kind of can I still control space this? I can. Ignore the insane. I just like I like just don't care about my structure anymore. Like we just let it go. Um where is this thing? The Trinity, yeah. So it looks like this. And I originally tried to build it in Blender, which the modeling was fine. And I tried to rig it in Unreal Engine with the skeleton, but I couldn't get it quite to work. But more and more I believe that we can just basically model it wherever. Um and then do all of the skeleton authoring in the engine itself, which is it saves like so much headache because it's like there's scale, but then there's also like which way is forward, which is like like in and which way is up is different in Maya and Blender and whatnot. So it's like just skipping all of that stuff when you're building out really crazy rigs is really nice to do that in engine. But I wasn't able to pull this off in 5.5. I tried. But it's basically this like kind of cascading. I think if I showed this, all the bones, it's basically like a spine that's going up here. And the way that this like these are supposed to be like spring arms, which I'll eventually model them out and rig them more correctly. But like each one of these sort of like counter levels itself. So like you would like rotate this, which this would then do the inverse. Same thing here. This is the inverse, and it keeps it level. And so this thing is just like a kind of like a mess of like offsets and constraints and like counter levelings. And then on top of that, this thing is doing like gimbal math, which is basically like if you it'll try to always keep the horizon straight. So like if you spun the whole stick to the side, the inside would counter rotate that. So there's just like a lot of like kinematic like skeleton math that goes into building these. And I've just been like getting better at building these like over the years. And this is my latest one. And so this it's basically it started off as a lot more controls, but it turns out I could pull it off with less. But it's basically taking this slider, which is just a control here, and you just like right click and you say new control, and this one type is a float here. And if I take this one, this is arm boom. Control Rig has its own full node system that like regular Unreal Engine is still kind of catching up to. Like incredible. Like these are things that would require like regular blueprints, like way more nodes and it'd be like way less readable. Just
Yeah.
the fact that it has the min and max built into it, and then the remap. It's just like there's so many things like that in Control Rig. Control Rig is like advanced Unreal Engine blueprints. Like it's just way more evolved. It's like super nice. Same with PCG actually too as well, and meta sounds and any of the new systems are like all the new blueprint systems from scratch are like incredible. But this thing basically just feeds like a ton of rotations throughout this skeleton. So basically from this like one slider, which is this blue thing here, it just drives all these rotations to keep this thing level. And I'm using that right now to drive the kind of boom arm here, which I'm sure is absolutely tiny on whatever format this is played back in. Um, but that's
And,
basically the double spring arm mechanism of a Steadicam arm for the most part
mm.
built in there.
And real quick, Matt, do you try to make this like as accurate as possible for a particular manufacturer specification, or is it
Yeah,
just yeah, cool.
yeah.
Huh.
Most of these are modeled to like as close as you can,
Wow.
and as close as it matters. Like if it's like a little bit off, it's not a big deal. But like yeah, these are all built like as close to scale. Some manufacturers send me like their actual CADs.
Oh, cool.
Um, but then I usually have to simplify them to actually make them work.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
just
you
like
don't need
literally,
every nut and bolt.
but like basically like I used to do or the old workflow. This is from a lot. I mean, maybe probably some studios still do this, but like you would do this in Maya
Mhm.
and build it all there. But like the round tripping, getting the animations back into the engine and then changing that stuff at runtime would have been like
Mm.
kind of impossible. It would have been like extremely difficult. Unity is actually pretty good at building this kind of stuff too. But I mean, like this stuff now, I moved this completely into Unreal Engine and has like changed like everything. This is like every single rig I build is like this. This one's just doing a swing here, and I'll put it like in the position that ends up happening. This is doing like a double elbow on
Mm.
this. I need to build like the IK version of this later. And then this one, and so like what's happening, I'll go back and show it on the person, is that like after all of these rotations are happening, it's keeping this pivot here at a perfect 90-degree angle. It's always facing that way. And this enables me to, when we spin the post from here, we're actually auto leveling the roll here. So like anytime we see like a roll head like this inner ring rotates to keep the horizon level. That's like the whole goal of most of these camera stabilizers is like you can just move it however, but like the horizon stays dead perfect unless you manually offset it. Is like the goal of most of the gimbals and stuff that's out there. So this took a lot. This took me a while. I like kind of think about building things like this for a little bit, and then after Unreal Fest, I was like, oh, we're gonna like build this now. And so this is the first rig I built after Unreal Fest, and it's been like really popular already. It's already live on the Steam version of the game, and people are using it.
Yeah.
Um, and this is it like in action. If we like put it in the game, and then we have to have the metahuman like animate with it and stuff like that. If we just like, I'll just try to like have it try to keep it somewhat stable. At some point, he's gonna flip it into low mode, and it's doing like all the gimbal math and all the spring stuff and whatnot. So it's technical animation plus
Wow.
kind of like live control programming. So there's multiple things happening here. Like one, there's a sequence playing this animation, but then on
Mhm.
top of that, there's live control of the exact same rig,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool to be able to kind of combine those two things together. So it's not so much like a tutorial, but like this is like
Great show and
literally,
tell.
yeah, like literally the game I'm building. So
Yeah.
it's like half control rig animation, half live animation on the same rig to
Mhm.
simulate, a pretty complicated like mechanical kind of machine. And it uses metahumans. I try to use metahumans on like everything. And I
Yeah.
just built out the iOS version, which came out like really pretty good too. But I can't show. I'm on a PC right now, but it came out nice.
So cool. Matt, you're also getting me thinking with this. Do you have any kind of background in robotics or doing like more tactile physical versions with this kind of stuff?
I have an interest in it. I feel like the film industry is a little bit like robotic. Like there's like
Sure.
I was always into like motion control, it's called.
Mhm.
So you would program like robots, especially like a bunch of rotations, it's like and it gets the camera from here to here, but then it can repeat that move over and over again. I've done a lot of shoots like that, so my mind is inclined to do that. And that's how I got into previs, is like we would previs like remote, motorized camera moves. And it's like we're gonna do this like 100 times and build the whole set behind it. It's like we need to know what like exactly what's gonna happen. So that was my background, like techno dollies, Milos, motion control for like big cameras. And so a lot of that like knowledge is how I build these as well. But it's like, yeah, you kind of have to understand like certain kinematic like solves, IK solves, and like how like spring arms are working and stuff like that. And then Unreal Engine takes it to like another thing because like typically for technical previews, you would just like animate it and just it's just a play blast in Maya is like how a
Yeah.
lot of it works. It's just linear. This you need to live control. So it's a different it's a fun aspect of it, which I still I mean this is like this is what I like to build. And luckily there's a business a business for it. But like yeah, I like building like the although different like mechanisms and like so the film industry's gotten way more robotic as time has gone on with gimbals.
Right.
It's like everything is like every drone. I have drones in this game too. They're all doing the same kind of gimbal math and they fly differently. So it's been a fun project. This is Chem Op Simulator to just try to build all of those types of machines and then have like filmmakers be able to kind of control them live in practice.
Yeah. So cool. And let's get your video going again. Thank you for sharing that. That was an awesome
I think
show
I
and
need to
tell.
click my camera.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh, heard something. Hey,
Ah, you're back.
hey, okay, nice.
Fantastic. Cool. So as we start to wrap up, Matt, a couple final questions I had on my list for you. One is you do quite a few different YouTube channels, like Cinematography Database, of course, huge following. You could have just put everything into there, but you did start to create these smaller YouTube channels that were like a little more focused on other things. Can you tell me a little bit about the strategy behind that?
Yeah, it's been a disaster.
Oh no.
It's all over the place. Yeah, so so the first thing I ever sold on the internet was a Maya plugin. And it was a bunch of 3D cranes just like there. You
Mhm.
just saw, but it was in Maya. And my first YouTube video on cinematography database, which is supposed to be a database of like cinematography apparatus, was like Maya tutorials. Um, and I was like, well, this is not gonna like get views. I was like, let's try being a YouTuber. And like so like I used to just sit in my attic and just I would take stills from movies and behind the scenes from movies and put them into a slideshow and just draw on them in Photoshop and be like and
Ah,
explain. I was like, so here's the behind the scenes, here's what's happening, and I would just walk through like an entire movie, no edit, hour and a half long, and
wow.
those videos at the time went like pretty viral. They're like
Yeah,
hundreds of thousands of views, like a million sometimes. Like what were I forget what the big blogs. Blogs were big back then.
of
Like
course.
the big blogs would pick them up and be like, boom, got like just doing like numbers. And so that channel like blew up from these like movie breakdowns I'd used to do. And so that channel, most of those people are like, they come back and they're like, where's the movie breakdowns? Right? Because they were cinematography breakdowns. They'd be like, I was like, here's the crane. It's this type of crane. And here's the
Mhm.
shot from that crane. This is, so like, and like I would try to like content market like, and I'm making this 3D program. You should check it out. It's pretty
By the
cool.
way.
Yeah, so it was, it was just like I was like, let's make some fun marketing for my software I was making. But anyway, that channel got really big off of that. That was like the
Mhm.
first like either like 100,000, 150,000 subscribers. And same with Instagram. I was like kind of known for that. Instagram had like a slightly different like 3D thing with like quarter digital and some of them we did some stuff. So I was like, I'm always like, I don't want to produce for this channel because it's mostly known for that. But then I was like, when I got the mega grant to produce the virtual production series, I was like, I'm not going to build another channel. I mean, like, I already have like this 100K whatever channel. It's going to do better for the algorithm. Let's just produce it here again, even though like half of the people are like, where movie breakdown, Matt? Like, literally, I'm like, I build all these apps and all this other people still come to that channel. They're like, this is great, but like, where's the next movie? Like, literally, I still get those comments now. And I'm like, it's been so long. What the hell?
Yeah. Show me
So,
Dune, Matt. Come on.
and so like what I sort of learned about products and side projects is they should all be on YouTube. They should all be their own channel. That's just how
Mm.
the algorithm works. So I just do that now. Like Cinetracer has, I think, 10,000 subscribers, something. On Instagram, it's like 80,000. So it was a really good idea to start that. It's always painful when you have a big channel to start a new one and be like, there's my 2 likes. It's like if I did this on
Right.
my main channel, it'd be like, 20,000. It's like, what the hell? But
Mhm.
like long term for all my products now, in businesses, I spin off different channels immediately. um, but it's been all over the place. But I sort of know that that's the best way now. And the way that the algorithms work, I can usually, if I'm paying attention, I can usually juice up like a brand new channel like pretty well. Like my TikToks I can get them up and running pretty quickly. As I have a
Mhm.
lot of new things coming out, and I have like my mocap side of things, and I sell like metahuman skins and whatnot, and so they're all their own. I don't know if you want to call them verticals, but they all get their own channels, and I have
Yeah.
like 50 at least. It's just like so many, and like
Wild.
I still have like ones from like Cinema 4D days that have like still keep growing. It's like 30,000
Ah.
subscribers and stuff like that. But yeah, it's better for I think it's better to give them each their own channel and let them live on their own versus trying to like feed them. I was on Instagram. Instagram, you can collab on Reels. Have you ever done that? I don't know if
No,
you're on
I haven't
Instagram.
tried that.
Instagram is huge for me right now. It's like the easily the best platform in LinkedIn. But like, you can collab. So I have like my huge channel and then my new channels, and you can post a reel and you can collaborate on them. So it just shares the reel between them. So it's like posting a YouTube video, but it shows up on two channels and you share the engagement.
Yeah.
So that's been really good. So um my new apps I've been able to like seed from my main channel to the other ones, and they're already like, I think they're over 10,000 now. It's like it's really fast to do that, so
Wow.
it's pretty nice. Yeah, social media keep changing. It's a move. I used to make blogs. I used to
Yeah.
be a professional blog writer, YouTube breakdown maker and whatnot, but like it's all very different now. How I think you market and build these types of hmm, channels these days. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
disaster. Keeps it's like just like UEFN, just keeps changing every day. It's different. Like it's gotta keep trying. That's what I told you on LinkedIn. I was like, if you posted that vertical, LinkedIn's gonna like it
Right.
a lot more. Um,
Yeah. I
they
and
just
that
they just will.
that advice is much appreciated. I've been so lazy about this stuff, and I've had many opportunities where I thought like this should be its own YouTube channel or whatever, and I've been like, nah. And I've just got this insane mix of so many different things all under this YouTube channel I started when I was like 12 years old, and it's just like it's all there. But I'm sure the algorithm hates it. You're inspiring me though. Maybe I will start to try to create a couple new ones and see where it goes.
I mean, that can work too, because if people come for you, then that's the common thread, which there's that thought. But yeah, I think a lot of people are like, hey, I like this video, let me binge watch just that type of content.
Right.
I think that's how I build out content these days. Is like, because like even if it's not upfront, like viral or something like that, that doesn't really matter. People will go back and watch like the whole discography
Oh
if
yeah.
it's the type of content they want.
Mhm.
And so that's long tail sales type of strategy here.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to produce this and just keep so that people will find it later and it'll convert, that sort of stuff. But I do think that that's how people consume content when it's especially if you're going for like a sale from like a sales point of view. They're just like
Yeah.
they're like, what's this thing to like? Does it work? What does it do? And you have to tell. I forget what they always say. So you have to tell people like 7 times before they'll like actually buy it. And it's like,
Right.
so put all the reasons in one place. Kind of. So it depends on like if you're selling a product with this content, which is primarily what I do these days, or you're like an influencer, you're getting paid to make it, right? So it depends on what type of. I mean, it all comes down to money
Yeah.
in the end, like how you put it together.
That's really excellent advice. Thanks for that, Matt. And I think my last question for you for this lovely evening conversation we're having is when you were on set for the month-long shoot there with the fine folks from Epic Games with one of these very early LED walls, did it feel revolutionary to you? Did it feel like you were at the start of something that was really going to make a huge impact on the industry? Or did you think it was going to be kind of this little side gimmicky thing that some people would play with, but it wasn't going to gain any traction?
I didn't think it would be as big as it became. Like it's just
Mhm,
ubiquitous now. It's not even like it's just like a given that like
mhm.
every like every state has several, every school has it, so it's like, but no, when we were doing it, um just shout out Juan Gomez,
Mhm.
Kim Libreri, David
Yeah.
Morin, Miles Parkins from Epic, who like kind of brought me into that project. I had no idea what was going on. I was like an actor, basically. I was like,
Mhm.
and I did some DP work. I brought the crew in and like kind of consulted on the lighting and stuff like that. But I was like, basically, they had just done that for Mandalorian, and that
Yeah.
exact team was like, okay, we're gonna do it over here. We need like a DP and a director to kind of like be the face of it, and I led a lot of the presentations on it. Um, but that was just out of the blue, that project.
Yeah.
I was just like, what? But it was like full DP rate for 30 days. I was like, let's roll.
Oh, man.
Let's go do whatever you're talking about. I'm here for it. And it just turned out to be like incredible. So that's all Epic and Profile Studios, and they're the ones that did all of that stuff. I just kind of was there. But yeah, I had no idea. And then it blew up like insane. Like
Yeah.
I was like, we're moving to LA. I was like, this is like all we're gonna do. I was consulting for like every studio that exists. And some of them I met for the first time at Unreal Fest. That was like super cool. Like all the Amazon people from back then, like infinite Zoom calls about that stuff. Um, to meet them in person for the first time, like Kenneth and them. I was like, this is awesome. But no, I had no idea. And I had no part in its like conception either. I was just like kind of there to like execute it, which I did for 30 days.
Amazing.
Think we did an okay job on it, but it was like, yeah, it's pretty Wild West too, because it didn't work. I mean, like any crazy tech demo, Vitali, I believe, and like them getting end displayed at work. There's pictures of him on LinkedIn, like just like sleeping at the computer.
Oh,
We
no.
would we would come in during the prep and like be like, oh, this isn't quite working, and then his whole team would work overnight rewriting in like C, like end display and being like, all these walls are not syncing, and like the color scientist would be like, oh, this isn't looking good. So it was I would just come in and be like, it's like, oh, I'm gonna swing the camera around and like this is the kind of lighting we want, and I'd be like, I'll see you guys later. And then they would be in there like, oh, like actually making it work. But yeah,
Wow.
that that blew up way bigger than I ever expected.
Totally wild. All right, Matt. Well, you've already done a really great job doing what we try to do at the end of the podcast, which is just to give some shout outs. Is there anyone who is exciting you these days or you feel like deserves a little bit more of an audience that you would like to give a little shout out to?
Shout out the whole Apple Vision Pro community, developers, early ones.
Woo!
That is awesome. I wish I was. I want to. I'm just like scared. I'm just like I was like I don't think I could put a year into it yet and get it back. Enough to keep doing it. Right.
Yeah.
That's the point. So I'm pretty happy with all the Apple stuff. So shout out the Apple team
Yeah.
at Unreal Engine, Epic Games. Shout out my friends who are still at Apple.
Yeah.
It's like we're coming, and yeah, keep pushing the AVP stuff. I'm so into it. I just like new tech.
Yeah.
And you got to try the XR glasses. I don't know if we're running Unreal Engine apps in those, but like once I saw like the AVP stuff, I was like, oh, those are gonna be good,
Yeah.
and they're fast. Like like, have you seen the specs for like an Apple like an iPad Pro M4? How fast
Mm,
that
I
computer
haven't
is?
yet.
Oh
No.
my God, they're so fast. I mean, Apple's doing it. I mean, they're combining the CPU, GPU, RAM all into one tiny chip, and like what they're good, that because the fives are coming out now. But
Mhm.
it's like, have you seen like the leaks about the new Mac Minis?
Yeah, I
They're
saw that.
so fast,
Oh
and
man.
they're getting faster and smaller. So like sticking it on your head and doing VR and with metahumans and all the stuff I build. It's like that's what I would like. I
Yeah.
would like to be able to like that virtual Steadicam I'm building. I want you to do that in XR. You know, whatever form of that comes out, like that's what I want because it's like it's a training simulator. The best ones in
Mhm.
VR and XR. It's just that that's a hard platform. Most filmmakers are not rolling like a Puget 4090 like you are,
Right.
and like yeah, I got 8 base stations. It's too much, but like that ecosystem, like yeah. So who's ever making that happen? Keep making that happen.
Yeah. Oh man, I second that. Uh Thanks, Matt. And then finally, not where should people find you, but where would you like people to find you? Where out of your many, many hundreds of channels, if people wanted to be watching what you're up to or get in touch, how would you recommend they do that?
It's an interesting one. I think LinkedIn is a pretty good one if we're on
Hmm.
the professional side of thing. I met several people on the younger side. I told them at Unreal Fest, I was like, "Hey, you on LinkedIn?" They're like, No." I was like, am I old? Is this an old thing?"
Oh
I was like,
no.
"That's where like it's a real ID. I can kind of see your CV a little bit. I can kind of see like, but like maybe it's old and lame. It's not cool." But I was like, I still like LinkedIn. It's like if you like, you follow there or message me there, it's like I can kind of see like, is there common business? If not, not accepting. But it's like I can still you can still see the work I'm doing. Otherwise, it's like I don't know. I have a lot of channels, and if any of those products are like into your category, they my algorithms will find you. So it's
Yeah. Do you have
not a
like a
problem.
link tree or anything that's just like, "Bloop, bloop, here's the thousand things"?
It would be so wide; it'd just be like a disaster.
Yeah.
Anyone who does like, I think anyone who like is like a customer or like buys the stuff that I make, yeah, it's like I have all the channels for all of them, like,
Mm,
and they're all spinning at once. So
amazing.
like I have people that like just buy my metahuman clothing and I'm like sending them stuff and like they need like substance painter files to like redo the skins and stuff like that. But it's like they kind of know. So I don't really have like any specific channel to call out.
Yeah. I feel like the algorithm picks you up pretty well though, insofar as like you don't have many pseudonyms. So people type in Matt Workman, metahumans, or whatever, like they'll probably find the things they're looking for.
Yeah, I'm on every platform pretty hard. So it shouldn't be shouldn't be shouldn't be too difficult. But I still like LinkedIn. I'm old, I guess. I don't know. Like that's just like it's like it's like the best, it's like the closest to being like, oh, you're a real person, this is your name, versus like pure avatar on Discord. It's like frog catcher 29. It's like, hey, I love your work. It's like, I don't know what to do with that. It's so I'm old. I still like to kind of see the LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Well, you got me wondering now, especially with the younger UEFN people, like how do they find each other if they're not on LinkedIn or places with real names?
Discord,
Like, yeah, they're
Discord,
just on Discord
and
and
Twitter.
hiring people with crazy names.
Specifically UEFN is very, very, very Twitter. Someone I've known for a long time, and I met at Unreal Fest for the first time, Tiger, and he's getting into UEFN. He was like posting on LinkedIn. He's like, I need help with this thing. I was like, this ain't the platform, brother. Like you need to you post that on Twitter, and like it's gonna like like all
Immediately.
the people who are like, I mean, it took time to get them to know you, but it was like they are very on there. And then Discord.
Yeah,
Discord's like the main channel for a lot of those people.
absolutely.
And ArtStation too. I had several. Yeah, I had an
ArtStation.
artist come up to me after my talk, and I was like, she showed me her work, and I was like, that's awesome. We should like hit me on LinkedIn. She's like, I don't even have a LinkedIn. I was like, what do you
Ah,
have? It's like ArtStation. I was like, oh, I guess that does. I guess that makes sense for an artist, right? That's where artists
right.
would put their portfolios up there. I was like, I don't know. I still like LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Amazing. Well, thank you, Matt. Thanks everyone for listening to the Unofficial Unreal Engine podcast. And quick things to note. Next week, of course, doing Unreal Day in Belgrade, going over to VES to hang out with Chris Nichols and the Chaos Group team at VES Berlin, then headed over to AWEEU in Vienna, doing a
Damn.
couple other things around Vienna. Yes. And then also for anyone who, like Matt and I are trying to promote, who wants to get more involved with Apple Vision Pro and all that, I'm giving my second live Apple Vision Pro training seminar on November 7th. So go to alexcoulombepresents.com for anyone who wants to register for that. And we'll go into a deeper dive with OpenXR hand tracking and pinch gestures and how to get things onto test flight and get all your app icons working. Because Vision Pro, by the way, Matt, gives you like
Mhm.
more depth when you do your app icons, a little
I
beyond
saw
what
that.
you
Yeah,
get with
Steve was. I
iOS.
saw Steve posting about that. Yeah, that looks sick. Yeah, they're slick. Apple, they're slick over there.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. Well, cool. This has been an awesome supersized episode. I appreciate the time, Matt, and hope to see you again soon in the Boston or New York City area, or maybe in Orlando
I'll see you in
at
Disney World.
middle of June, in the middle of Cinderella's castle, or at like, if we all go on like Rise of the Resistance at Galaxy's Edge or something like that, it'll be a good time.
There's gonna be a Fortnite ride. I'm calling it.
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if that like opened by the time Unreal Fest opened?
Yeah, that's very
Uh
unlikely.
Crazy. Who knows? Who knows? We can dream, we can speculate. Thanks everyone, and goodbye for now.